I'm Kristen, and today we're going to be making some quilted journal covers. So these are really good for gifts. You can make one or two in an evening, depending how quick you are. You get to learn some quilt as you go techniques, some beginner quilting techniques if you're brand new and you just wanted to start something small. You also obviously can use up scraps. There's lots of little pieces in these. And I'm going to show you how you can make it for any size book. So these I think are A5 journals. That's the terminology we use in the UK. But anyway, you can make it with the measurements I'm going to give you. You can make it for any size journal or book. And I'm using a hardcover book, but you don't have to. You could use a soft cover as well. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to start with any book. Mine is a hardbacked journal type thing. You could get them in the dollar store or anywhere like that, pound shop in the UK. It doesn't have to be hardback. It can be soft cover. It can also be like a printed book. So same kind of idea. So what you're going to do is take a bendy soft tape measure and, my camera. Take a bendy tape measure and wrap it from one end to the other. So I'm getting 12 inches there. And then from lengthways across the cover. So I'm getting round about just under 8.5, 8.25, looks like to me. So what we're going to do then is the final size we want before we've put on the backing and the flaps and things for our front cover is going to be 1 inch bigger on each of those measurements because we're adding for our seam allowance. So for me, that's going to be 13 inches wide plus just under 9.5 inches tall. But because we're going to be quilting, we're going to make our wadding, whichever you call it, a little bit bigger. So we're going to trim it down later. So this is, let's see how big I've cut this. This is quite big for the size I'm doing. So this is like 15 by 11. So it doesn't need to be that much bigger. Maybe just add another inch. But just to be on the safe side, I've just cut it quite large. So it depends how densely you're quilting it and all of that. But anyway, start with a piece of batting that is at a very minimum an inch wider and an inch higher than your book. But ideally like 2 inches bigger so that you can trim it down and make sure you don't cut short. So we'll start with the cover and then I'll show you the flaps and the backing and how you add all of that. So to make the journal cover, so this is the pretty bit, the quilted bit, you take your batting and one piece of fabric. It doesn't have to be the same size as mine here. It's just that was just a Ruby Star scrap that I had left over. You could make it bigger or you could start smaller and just quilt down. I'm using some of the decorative stitches on my machine that I don't use or I've never seen. I was just kind of exploring them with this project, so I used a different stitch for each one, but I have done other ones. I'll show you them near the end with just straight line quilting, so you don't have to copy what I'm doing here. So I've just sped up the video here because otherwise we'd be here all day watching this. But basically you quilt down one piece and then you're going to look for another piece that's a similar size on one edge, or you cut something down. So I think I cut down a strip for the next piece, which you'll see in a minute. This is an example of one of the straight line ones I did. So that was the first piece for that. So just another example. Anyway, you then add your next strip of fabric and you're going to sew it down right sides together. So you're going to change your stitch back to a straight stitch if you're using one of these decorative ones. Don't forget to do that. Because otherwise you'll waste thread and it's just a pain. Anyway, so I know those aren't fabric scissors. It's just what I had to hand. So yeah, right sides to right sides, sew it down with a straight stitch and then flip open and then quilt that next piece down. So you can use the same stitch as I said or a different one. You could use free motion for this. I don't, because then I'd be switching back and forth, putting the feed dogs up and down because I'm doing the sort of stitch and flip method here. So if you want to use this as a way to practice your free motion quilting, then, just cut a piece of fabric that's the same size as your batting, or use an orphan block or something that's already pieced, I think, rather than doing the stitch and flip method. So I think I will speed up the rest of this so you can just see how the cover came together. We're basically just building it up. When I get to the point, so I've started on I should have said this at the beginning, I started on the right side, which is going to be the front cover of the journal. So when I get closer to the left side of the batting, as I'm looking at it, not here, but when we started, then I sort of revert to doing more strips or more simple things. I don't add so many small pieces because that's going to be the back. So you will see it, but not quite so much as you're going to see the front cover. Also, you'll note when we trim this up that I've gone a bit wonky here. I didn't mark anything. I didn't really trim anything. So my strips have gone sort of off to the side a bit. I think it still looks good, but if you want it to be bang on, then do measure and trim before you start. So when you're finished quilting, you're going to trim that panel down to the size that we talked about before. So 1 inch higher and 1 inch wider than the measurement you took from your book cover. And you're going to have another piece of just plain old quilting cotton or whatever you're using for the lining. So it should be exactly the same size as the quilted panel. And then you need 2 pieces that are going to be the flaps, and they're going to be the same height as those 2 pieces that you've cut, but the width is going to depend. So that could be 7 inches. That's basically what I use for most of them, but it could be a little bit more if you want. So you're going to fold those flaps in half to make those panels in half, sorry, to make your flaps. You'll see that in a minute. So it's going to be half, your flap is going to be half the width minus a 1/4 inch for your seam allowance. So depending on the size of the book cover that you're trying to make, you might want that to be deeper. So I'm going to say a minimum of 7 inches wide for those flaps. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to attach the flaps now, but I'm also going to show you a little optional extra that I like to do on these book covers, which is to add a little bit of ribbon to close. So this is so that you can tie the journal up. So I'm just finding roughly the halfway mark here on the journal cover top, and I'm getting 2 pieces of ribbon. You don't have to cut it in half. You could kind of just put the 2 edges to the side and then cut it after the fact. But anyway, I had 2 pieces already cut. And then I'm going to put my folded flaps right on top of that. So if you don't want to do the ribbon, just skip the ribbon and do the flaps. I'm just using the pin here to hold the ribbon in place, but obviously, or clip, sorry, but you could also pin, clip, whatever. I don't use a lot of pins. Anyway, so you're doing the raw edge to the raw edge of the sides of your quilted panel. So the fold of both of those 2 side pieces are facing the middle. What you're going to do is sew down either side, back stitching where you've got your ribbon if you've got one, and then continuing on again to either end. So here it is sewn up. So just that's where the ribbons are tucked in, and then that is the flaps attached. So next we're going to add on the lining or the backing, whatever you want to call it, the back of the cover that you're not going to see at all. So you don't have to use a coordinating fabric, just use anything. So we're going to go right sides down on top of your flaps, on top of your quilted panel, and then we're going to stitch all the way around, and we're going to leave a 2-inch, 3-inch turning circle. So I like to do that at the bottom, what's going to be the bottom of the journal, but you can put your turning flap wherever you like, really. So all I'm doing is putting the clips in place so I know where to stop and start, and then I'm going to take it to the machine and sew all the way around. I'm going to back stitch when I start and back stitch when I finish at that second clip. So once we have it all sewn up all the way around and we have our little gap for turning, we're then just going to trim the corners away and any excess bulk in the seams so that when we turn it right side out, it goes neatly. So once that's done, you just take hold of it from the turning circle and start pushing those corners out. You can use your finger, you can use a chopstick. I like a chopstick to turn a corner. And then when we get it all the way out, you're going to find the flap's probably going to look like it's on the wrong side. So you're just going to flip it over
and then it should be in the right place. So once you've got it right side round, we're just going to sort of flatten it up a bit, and then you just kind of roll the raw edges in where your turning gap is, and then clip that, and then you want to press it at your iron, and then we're going to top stitch all the way around. You can hand sew that shut, but you know me and hand sewing, if I can avoid it, I do. So press it all down, and then take it to the machine and start where your turning gap is. So, and here I'm just fiddling and checking that I'm going to catch both the top and the bottom with my top stitch. So I've lengthened my stitch to I think like 3.5, and I'm just going to sew all the way around. So I'm sewing back over the flaps again, I'm sewing over the turning gap to close it, and I'm sewing just all the way around. So obviously check where your ribbon is at that point. You want to make sure, if you've got one, make sure it's out so that you're just sewing another line of stitching that's going to keep that extra secure, but you're not stitching it in the wrong direction or something like that. So just sew all the way around, and then I'll show you how you put in the book. So here is our finished cover, and just obviously flip it around. There's our two flaps and the ribbons. So remember that the right side is going to be the front cover and the other side's the back. So we fold it in half just to make sure we like it like that. You can obviously at this point reverse it. It's pretty much, you know, just turn it upside down if you like the back better. And then, so I've got a hardcover journal here, but you could use a soft cover, works the same. So you just slip one side in, and then you kind of arch it to get it into the second one, and it should just slip in. So there should be a little bit of give with the measurements that we've used there so that it fully covers the book. And then we're done. And all we need to do is tie up the ribbon to finish. So I'm going to show you a few other book covers I've done and what's different about them, just to give you some more ideas. You can attach the ribbon on the outside rather than in the seams. This one, just a few stitches to the back with a ribbon, and then you can tie it around the front. I also started with just some squares of fabric down the side and then strips. So it just depends what kind of scraps you have to hand. This one, I started with a much bigger scrap for the front cover and then just added strips to the side and the back, and I used all straight line quilting. This next one, I started in the center with a tiny scrap and kind of went at slightly odder angles, so it kind of angled out to fill the space. Technique, then watch my coasters video because it's pretty much the same thing. And this one's not finished yet, but I just wanted to show you that you can add little embellishments. So you could add buttons or something. I've added little pieces of selvage there, the bit that says top and the little color dots from a salvage edge. So you could add any little sort of touches or labels or bits of ribbon, anything you want to embellish it. So do that after you've quilted or while you're quilting and before you've added the flaps and the lining.
I hope you like the project and you'll get busy making your own. If you like videos like this, then do please comment, subscribe, like, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for spending time with me.